You made me weep, and you made me moan. When you caused me to leave, child, my happy home.
Hey, thanks for taking the time out, press and play, and listen to what I had to say. My name is David Leslie, and let's get started, and let's kick this pig. Those of y'all that have been following me and been listening to me on the radio, different conservative radio stations and veterans radio stations throughout the past couple of weeks, have been hearing a similar message that I've been putting out. That message is the comparison between Woodrow Wilson, our president during World War I, and President Obama. We don't hear much about Woodrow Wilson, we don't hear much about that era, namely because the American public didn't want to get into World War I. We took the action of neutrality in the very beginning. However, Woodrow Wilson was the leader of the progressive movement. Obama has taken that progressive movement and have gone even further left. Now, the similarities between the two are astonishing, absolutely astonishing. Not only from the time when they first came into office and the length of their political career before they actually became president. And believe me, their tenure was very short. Even after President Obama had a failed congressional run his first time out, they still held office a very minimal amount of time before they actually became the President of the United States. Now, we're going to go over a couple of bullet points that really pretty much hit that issue home, because the progressive movement really is about attacking the liberties and attacking the Constitution of the United States. And I am absolutely a firm believer, not only as a combat veteran, but also as the founder of the Two for Women Project, that the progressive movement and the progressive ideology is detriment to our nation, to the point that I would personally sit there and say that it is damaging to our national security. And here's why. The progressive movement failed in the 1920s, right after World War I. Everything that Woodrow Wilson was putting out through his propaganda wasn't matching with what the American public was seeing in their day-to-day lives. Same thing we're seeing now. At the opening stages of World War I, the American public had absolutely zero interest in what was going on in Europe, especially when they started seeing all the news reports about the trench warfares and the horrific conditions and everything that was going on. And in their mind, what they saw in Europe didn't match what they were being told here in the States. That was one of the failures of the progressive movement. One of the biggest attacks on personal liberties during that time that Woodrow Wilson was trying to get America into World War I was the Espionage and Seditions Act that he put in place. This was a specific attack on free speech, a very specific attack. Look at what they're doing right now. Look at what the Democratic Party is doing right now in Congress. They're doing everything they can in order to attack free speech, because they don't want the American public, they do not want you, the taxpayer, to hold them accountable for their actions. They want big government, okay? During this time, the Espionage and Seditions Act shut down 75 newspapers nationwide. And when the Espionage Act first got implemented through Congress, they locked away 1,500 people. 1,500. Later on, another 50,000 Americans were arrested. Why? Because they tried to hold their government accountable. Remember, the federal government works for us. We don't work for them. Now, under Woodrow Wilson's administration, the Department of Justice created the American Protective League. This was the forerunner for President Obama's Civil Defense Force. This was basically his playbook on how to actually create a propaganda machine. Here comes a hint. Pay the fuck attention. These two propaganda machines were set out to attack their political rivals. Hint, hint, hint. What's going on with the IRS right now? The IRS scandal that they're holding hearings on in Congress now. IRS was sitting there targeting conservative groups because they were the political adversaries to this administration. And that's just the first bullet point. We haven't even gotten into everything else. At the same time, when President Obama started putting in all these White House czars, these heads of departments that controlled every little specific thing, understand the progressive movement wants to expand the federal government. They want the federal government to have a say in every single home within the United States. They just do. Under Woodrow Wilson's administration, Colonel House was the forerunner for all czars. He created that specific playbook. President Obama took it even further. Here's an interesting thing. When Colonel House actually left office and Woodrow Wilson lost, and his two big things, the Treaty of Versailles and the joining of the Nation of Leagues, just failed and plummeted with the American society and failed in Congress. And the progressive movement took a huge nosedive right within the 1920s at the end of World War I. Colonel House wrote a book. That book in 1912 was called Philip Drew, Administrator, Story of Tomorrow. Here's an interesting point. On page 222 of this book, this is what Colonel House wrote. Our Constitution and our laws served us well for the first 100 years of our existence. But under the conditions of today, now granted this is 1912, under the conditions of today, they are not only obsolete, but even grotesque. Now that should be a shout out, because not only during the first election period of President Obama, but the second election period of President Obama, we heard the Democratic Party and the progressive left coming out attacking the U.S. Constitution, sitting there saying that the U.S. Constitution is a living document, trying to convince you, the American taxpayer, that it's a living document, that it should change. They want it to change, to expand federal control into every household. Because listen to this next bullet point. This comes from President Obama. This is an interview he did in 2001. The Supreme Court never ventured into the issue of redistribution of wealth. Let me say that again. The Supreme Court never ventured into the issue of redistribution of wealth and more basic issues such as political and economic justice in society. The Constitution is a charter of negative liberties. It says what the states cannot do to you. It says what the federal government cannot do to you. But doesn't say what the federal government or the state government must do on your behalf. Tell me that is not ringing out the absolute welfare state. President Obama, just like Woodrow Wilson, is doing everything he can to diminish and destroy the core constitutional principles that govern our nation. Not only are they trying to destroy the principles when it comes to private property, BLM, ding ding ding, hint one, civil liberties, ding ding ding, civil defense force, hint number two, and the personal freedoms of every single American in this nation. That is their goal. Not only are they wanting to diminish and destroy that, they're obviously having a hard time. President Obama and this administration is doing everything he can in order to erode American superiority, not just domestically, but internationally. Look at what we're seeing in Iraq. Here is such the hypocritical thing. John Kerry, the head of our State Department, went to Iraq and criticized the Iraqi government for not securing their borders. But yet, look at what's going on at our borders right now. This administration is allowing illegal aliens to flood this nation, to completely delude American superiority, to completely delude the American character, to completely delude everything that we stand as a nation, because they pick them up from the border and they drop them off at any given point, anywhere in the United States. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens coming across the border right now. They are trying to erode everything this nation stands for. And this administration is doing everything it can to represent the non-American, represent the non-taxpayer. Just like when Woodrow Wilson stood up in front of Congress and told Congress that it is the duty of the American public to defend democracy abroad while he attacks democracy at home. It's the same thing that President Obama is doing. He is attacking the American superiority. He's attacking who we are as a nation, because everything we built up until this point is what he considers wrong. The American exceptionalism is what he considers wrong. He wants the American public to be like every other nation. You know what? I've been to every other nation, and I absolutely do not want that to come home. It's time to wake the fuck up. All you have to do is put down your Starbucks for 5 fucking minutes and pay attention to the damn news, or turn it off and read a fucking newspaper. It's happening blatantly in front of your face. It's time to wipe the shit from your eyes and man the fuck up, because you're losing your nation, America. It's time to get it back. This goes back to what Benjamin Franklin said. Those of you that are willing to sacrifice personal liberties for a little bit of temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Think about it. That is this video. Stay tuned for the next. Hit up the subscription button on YouTube. Subscribe to me. Check me out on Facebook. Follow me. I'll be coming out with more. My name is David Leslie, and I'm the Marine.